Productions. I'm joined by some wonderful folks tonight. Let's go around and introduce ourselves a bit. Hey, Matt, why don't you go ahead, wave, and tell us a bit about yourself? Why don't you? Yeah, there you go. I'm just messing. Shoot, you're our guest star here from Three Swords Production. I'm very pleased to have you this evening. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for a moment?
Yeah, I'm Nathan Shoup from Three Swords Productions. We are a One Piece trading card game YouTube channel. Do a lot of live gameplay, but also we do a lot of do some amount of live coverage at times. We did the Arlington, which was a big tournament, the Arlington Treasure Cup, that is, and yeah, we're excited to be here and talk about One Piece and Magic and card games in general. So it should be good.
Sweet.
Awesome. Hey,
And I'm
thanks
Matt.
for stopping by. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
I'm
met
Patrick.
what was it, Chris at Gen Con 2023 and asked them if they'd be interested in joining us for a podcast, talking about One Piece and other things. I saw the big banner as you walked into Gen Con. They basically had like these big windows, the glass windows that welcomed you into the doors of Gen Con.
Yeah.
And it was just like a giant One Piece banner. So I was like, oh, okay. I know I've heard of One Piece before, as far as the anime, and then also that there was a card game coming out, but I wasn't sure like how popular it really was. So yeah, I hopped over to Three Swords Productions YouTube channel and watched a few of the gameplay videos. And honestly, it's interesting. I like how they're doing unique things. A lot of these new card games that come out, they're kind of just stealing from other card games and just making
Right.
a conglomeration of like. Did I just make up a word?
No, that's
Sure.
a word. You're good.
Oh, cool. They're just making like this one, like, kind of like, I don't know, mashed card game.
Yeah, so
But
this is,
cool, look at that.
Yeah, I took this one.
Nice.
Oh, good. So the thing that I like that I found that was unique about it is that so when you start your game, you have your standard like mulligan rule where like if you don't like your hand, you ship it back, you draw new cards.
Yep.
But then after you do mulligans, you take the top 5 cards of your library and you put them as your life point. That's your life pool.
That is your life
basically.
pool. Yes, that is exactly.
It's very interesting. And as you get hit on your life pool, you draw those cards.
You do.
So
They
it
go
seems
straight to your hand.
that's like a catch-up mechanic. It seems like.
Yeah, it's kind of a
Like, if
catch-up
you get
mechanic.
down
It
too
fixes
much,
your
you get,
things.
like a little extra power. Like card draw is super strong.
Yeah, it does a couple interesting things. First off, yeah, it gives you card draw and a reason that you might not want to attack your opponent every turn. Gives you a reason to maybe hold back and not give them all the resources that they could possibly have. Secondly, there are a number of cards within the game that have a trigger. So whenever you're dealt damage to your life, you look at the card, and if it has a trigger ability, you activate that trigger ability for free. It's not going to be the same as the effect of the card always. There'll be sometimes a different effect, but it'll be a powerful effect that you just get for free that somebody dealt damage to you in your life.
Okay, interesting. Is
But
there interaction on other people's turns, like instant spells, that kind of thing?
the game is almost exclusively at sorcery speed for Magic terms.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything you're doing is going to be pretty much on your turn specifically, except for a little bit of defense. So to kind of give a little bit of an idea of how a turn might go, you can attack with any of your characters or your leader on the board, or play cards from your hand in any order. You can attack and then play a card, and then attack and play a card, and so on and so forth, until you're out of things to do for the turn. And whenever you activate any one of those things, whenever you activate an attack on your opponent, whether it's on one of their characters on the board or whether it's at their leader, they get a chance to respond after you've declared your attack to defend. So all the cards in your hand have effects that you pay a cost for, and a lot of them will also have a counter. So it says on the side counter 1k or 2k, and then you can discard them from your hand for free for that counter ability to add power to your defense so that you can defend against the attacks.
Interesting. I like
that's
that.
right. Yeah.
That's one of the great things about some of the more modern trading card games, including One Piece.
Yeah.
Is that the cards have different utilities built into them,
Mhm.
whereas so many of the
Yeah.
more legacy trading card games, as it were, have a very staleness to their mechanics. And I think, pardon, one of the exemplars of that is that the commander decks for Magic the Gathering are 100 cards. Now, how big is a One Piece deck?
One Piece decks are 50 cards, and then you start with
see,
a
it's
leader in
like-
play, like
yeah.
a commander.
Yeah, that's practically twice the utility. And I assume from, what we've discussed behind the scenes in here as well, is that you're getting a lot of play interactions with the cards themselves. They're doing a lot for you.
It's slightly more than just 50, if you think of it in Magic the Gathering terms, because
Mhm.
you get your mana every turn automatically. It's not part of your deck.
You
from what I
do, yes.
understand.
That is different. So yeah,
Yeah,
this-
so like you don't have to waste like 30, almost 40 slots in your commander deck.
Mhm.
So like realistically,
Exactly.
it's almost the same amount of cards.
yeah. So
And
it kind of
120
works like I don't know if you played Marvel Snap or Hearthstone or anything like those, where you get
Yeah.
2 mana every turn. So if you go first, you start with 1 in play, and then if you're on the draw, you then on your turn will get 2 in play, and then every turn everybody's adding 2 until you get to a maximum of 10.
Okay.
And that is your they call it Dawn in the game, but it's your mana.
DAWN or some other version of
DON
spelling?
exclamation point exclamation point exclamation point, which I believe is
Okay.
something referencing the manga
Probably
and
the manga or
IP.
something,
But
Understood.
I'm part of the small part of the community that actually doesn't watch the anime, so I don't know that specifically.
I've never seen a single episode in my life.
I've
I actually
seen
do
most
watch
of the
anime,
first
but-
episode. Yeah,
I
it's
just- it doesn't
definitely
look
super unique. Yeah, I
Appealing
know
to
there's a
me.
huge following to it. I think they're on like
Oh,
1,000 episodes, something like that. It's pretty bombastic. Definitely everything I've seen of it is very over the top.
Yeah.
And I think that translates into some of the cards images I've seen, is that the characters are very, I mean, the main character's name is Luffy, so it's the type of bard that they're coming in with Magic the Gathering. There's definitely a lot of macabre items to it. I mean, Cabal coffers, you got demons and bloodletting and things like that. Is that the type of imagery that One Piece is bringing?
Not a whole lot. It is a lot of the anime. So not as much demon wise, but instead really playing with the tropes and the world that the anime has set out already. Using a lot of kind of cartoony stills from the show sometimes in different ways, and using the effects of the cards as they would interact within the show themselves as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I know it's pirate themed. That there's a giant swashbuckling adventure going on after a chase for a large treasure.
Yeah.
Now, is the same goal of a game to reduce your opponent's life total down? Or is there a different way that you're trying to beat the other person?
Yeah, so everybody's going to start with an amount of life in play, like you said, and those are cards off to the side that come from the top of your deck. The goal is to get your opponent dealt damage when they have no cards left. So let's say I start with 5 cards in play. I have to attack my opponent 5 times to get those 5 cards out of play. And then once my final attack, when they have no cards left, goes through, then they have lost the game, yes.
And does the attack of the creature, or what are they? Are they monster? What are they called? Are
They're
they
called characters, yes.
Characters, okay. So does the attack of the character matter by how many cards get removed? Are there any cards or attacks characters that can remove more than 1 card per attack?
Yeah, there are. Hey, Bob, how's it going, man?
Sorry, everybody. That was
No, I did it at just the right time for a screen, switch there. So I got you. Hope you had your coffee tonight, Bob. I'm on it.
no. My screen, my studio PC is not connecting to the internet. I was down there fussing and
bummer.
cussing at it for the last 15 minutes. Going, all right, well, let me flex and come up to the laptop. So sorry, it's not quite like the studio downstairs.
No worries. Thanks for
Sorry,
joining.
we're just talking
As
about
always,
One Piece.
good
Yeah.
stuff.
To answer your question, there are essentially characters within the game that have what they call double attack. And double attack is when they would do damage, they would do damage twice. There's also cards that have banish within the game, that whenever you deal damage to your opponent and they would add a card to their hand, they instead put it in their graveyard.
Ooh, that's really strong.
Yeah, those are strong abilities.
I have to imagine those are the big girthy creatures that cost like 6 or more.
Yeah, I've seen them on as low as 5 off the top of my head.
Okay.
But generally, so there's a really interesting thing about attacking within the game itself. So you get a leader within the game. Your leader is one of the pretty famous characters from the anime itself, and your leader has a couple of notes about them. They have an amount of life that you put as your cards off to the side. Most of them are going to be 5, but some are 4 and some are 6. And then there are it has a base amount of attack on it, a base amount of power on it, and that power dictates how strong it is within combat itself. So a lot of these characters that attack your opponent, they attack for that have the banish ability, that have the double strike ability. They can attack for anywhere from 5,000 up to 9,000 ish, and your mana can play in a special way with that. But when I attack my opponent with, let's say, 5,000, my opponent's leader has a power of 5,000. We're going to look at both of those, and whenever your power of your character or leader that you're attacking me with is higher or equal to than mine as an attacker, you win ties. Then you connect and get to do damage. So it works on some of the bigger characters that have that double strike, that have that banish ability, that you want them to have that bigger power to get through in the first place, because otherwise your opponent's going to be able to defend it.
And when you defend with a card that has what is it? Not double strike.
It's double attack. Yeah, I keep calling it double strike because I'm a magic nerd too. But
when you defend with cards like, say, from your hand to reduce the attack, do you have to defend both of the attacks separately?
No, it is all one thing that you're defending against. And
So
when
it's 5,000, as long as you remove 5,000, it removes both of the hits. Is that how?
Yeah, so let's go through an example here. You attack me with, let's say my leader is 5,000 power. You attack me with 5,000 on a character. That attack, if I do nothing, you'll get to do your damage. But all it asks of me is to get my power of my leader above your attack. So if you're attacking for 5,000, I can discard any one of the cards from my hand that have counter to add some amount of power to mine to get above yours. So if I discard something that has 1,000 counter on it, I can go up to 6,000 and you're negate your attack essentially.
I thought you had to negate the damage based on just straight up the attack. I didn't know that your actual leader had anything to do with the attack. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So playing your leader is a
leader
strategic.
able to be killed?
Your leader is killed at the end of the game whenever the game is over. Essentially, that's what kind of the flavor of it there. But no, your leader is never killed. It's like your commander
But
that's
it's always
always
going to have the ability to block the. How much power do the leaders have typically?
Almost all of them are 5,000 at this point, except for one that has 6,000.
So anything less than 5,000 just can't.
So
damage you at all?
let's get into the most interesting part of the game, probably.
Oh, the Dawn thing, right?
Yes.
Putting Dawn
So all of your
underneath
mana
it.
that you have in
Okay.
front of you, you can tap that and pay towards any of your characters to play them into the battlefield. So if I have a character that costs 5 in the corner for its cost, I would tap 5 Dawn and put that card in play. Do any effects of it. You can also have characters or leaders in play that have pay an amount of Dawn, so you just tap it and you get to do the effect of it. Otherwise, you can equip Dawn by just slotting it behind a card or a character or a leader, and it gives it 1,000 extra attack. So I can declare my attack, or before I declare my attack, I equip a bunch of Dawn behind it. Let's say I equip 4 to it to my leader. So I went from 5 with 4 Dawn behind, makes it 9k, and then I do my attack. I suddenly have a 9k attack instead of the 5k that is usually base. The Dawn will get removed back at the end of the next turn. So you'll be back to your unequipped Dawn, but for the turn, it's a temporary buff for you to be able to attack with.
And I'm assuming the Dawn that you equip to your character cannot be used that turn to play spells.
Correct. Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, that would be busted.
Yeah.
Can a player defend with Dawn?
You cannot defend with Dawn. You can only defend with counter power from hand.
Interesting.
Are there specialized zones? Is there a specific playmat that you should be using when you're playing the game?
Yeah, like is there a limit of number of characters you can have?
Yeah, there's a limit of 5 characters that you can have on the field. You always have one leader, and your leader has a specific spot. Your Dawn zone just can have a max of 10, so whatever there. And then there is one slot also on the battlefield for what is called a stage. And stage are kind of like artifacts. They're not characters, they're not leaders, but they have an ability that you can usually tap to do some sort of effect. So some of them will ramp you Dawn, some of them will draw you more cards, stuff like that. But they're usually locked to a specific leader.
Interesting. And do the leaders have? I mean, I assuming they have special abilities besides just their attack, right?
Correct, yeah. So there's leaders will offer you, like I said, unique things with their amount of attack, unique things with the amount of life that you'll have off to the side. Some have 5, some have 4, some have 6.
Okay.
They also have unique abilities on the cards themselves, so they give you different powers there. But in addition, every leader has a specific color associated with them, and that leader's color locks the color of the cards that you can add to your deck. So if I have a red
can you
leader,
pull
I can
up
only
a-
add red cards to my deck.
Can you pull up a one-piece leader?
Yeah.
What's a good one-piece leader?
If you want to search up Zoro, that's probably the easiest one to understand. Zoro.
Zoro?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Far left one there.
I've
It's
seen
probably the
him.
easiest.
Okay. He ain't got no special ability.
He
Oh,
does.
I guess he does.
He
He
does.
has-
Yeah. So
Okay.
this leader has 5,000 attack or 5,000 power. You see in the bottom right corner, it's got 5 life. So when at the beginning of the game, you put 5 cards off to the side, and that'll be the life you'll be able to defend with. And then it has an ability, which is Dawn times 1. Times 1 means you have a Dawn equipped to this card. It still counts towards its 1,000 attack when it's equipped as well. So it's a nice double dip there. And then it says on your turn, all of your characters get plus 1,000 power. So long as you have 1 Dawn equipped to this leader, all of your characters on the board get buffed on their attacks. So this is a
Okay, so he's like a built-in anthem.
built-in
Is it
anthem.
repeatable?
Yeah.
Would you be able to put 5
You
down?
can put more. You can
and
put more.
get-
I see.
No way.
No, it is just the once.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Okay.
that's way too
Yeah.
strong.
Dawn times 1 just means you get once as soon as 1 Dawn is equipped, and that's the minimum.
Okay.
Are there Dawn times 3 and 4 and?
There
Or
are
is it
cards
just-
that ask for that type of stuff. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I like the double use of the resource being able to either use as a either a buff. It's kind of like built-in fire breathing on every creature you have.
It's-
Japanese.
It's fire breathing, but it's super interesting because you have to be extremely efficient on every single one of your turns.
And I see there's no hit points. So I'm guessing just the attack value is like a double, like a 1,000 hit. If you have 1,000 attack, if somebody with 1,000 attack hits it, it'll just die.
For characters, yes, those would
Yeah,
just
for
die.
characters.
For leaders, you would take a life point.
Right.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, characters, we've talked about leaders pretty much at this point, but characters can attack, and they have different amounts of attacks, just like leaders do up in the top corner. When they attack, you can try to attack anything on the board that is either a leader or of your opponents that are tapped. So you can only attack tapped things, which means they had either used an ability or attacked on a previous turn. So you can, if I play a character out on the board, I could not get that card attacked this turn unless it somehow got tapped in some way.
That's funny you mentioned that. That was, not to detract from One Piece, but in the lawsuit for Upper Deck against Lorcana, they were claiming that the game that was in the works, that it was being designed, Lorcana supposedly ripped off, that the mechanic of only being able to attack tapped creatures was functionally like a unique, identifiable mechanic of the what they call it, Ruins of Icor or something.
Sure.
Is the name of the game that they haven't even released, that they said is so unique that that's one of the new mechanics. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not unique to
Right.
Alpha
Whatever
Clash
this
literally
rules
does the exact same thing.
what's that?
Alpha Clash literally does the exact same thing.
I'm just saying
You can only
there's a lot of
attack.
mechanics that they're trying to claim in the lawsuit against Lorcana that, it's a rip off of this. And it's like you're describing like 1,000 other different
Oh yeah,
games with color
tons of other games do
identities.
that.
And what's that?
I said, oh yeah, tons of other games do the same
Well, I mean,
thing.
just
where you can
all
only
the
attack.
mechanics that they listed, trying to claim that, Lorcana was a direct ripoff of Ruins of Icor. At any rate, I find that interesting because that's one of the. This is yet another game that has that same mechanic. I'm like, okay, like I have a feeling that the lawyers for Ravensburger are going to tear apart that lawsuit from Upper Deck.
Yeah.
Oh,
Why
so
don't
I
we
was
start-
Many of
okay.
these cards say sample. That's
I was
so
going to
They
ask about
put a
that.
giant
Do they actually
sign
say-
at Gen
Do they
Con
actually
for
say
One
sample
Piece.
on it or not?
Yeah, so Bandai has taken a stance of being pretty against proxies in the first place, and to fight that,
Okay.
all of their online renders say sample across them. So you can't print it out without it being specifically shown as a proxy.
It's very strange to be against proxies when, like, I understand it on a company level to like think that like if you allow proxy, I should say allow, if if people can make whatever the hell proxies they want, but if you allow proxies if you encourage proxies, I can understand them saying that like people aren't going to buy their game, but I think that the more people that play their game, the more people that will buy them. Like at my play group at home, not every one of us proxies, and the one person that doesn't proxy, he actually buys all of his cards because he doesn't like proxies, but he's fine with playing with people that have proxies. And we brought him into Magic from Yu-Gi-Oh, through everybody else playing with proxies, and the other one, and actually now that I think about it, two of our friends don't like proxies. They don't mind playing against them, but they don't want to. They want to have the real card. So I just think like that kind of principle, you extrapolate that across, millions of people, and you could have maybe 10% or 20% of your audience is proxying. Hell, maybe 50% of the audience is proxying. But the more people that are playing your game, the more people that hear about your game, and then will buy the cards, I think, in my opinion. But
Yeah, there's definitely arguments on all sides for this. And I think an interesting thing about proxies for this game a lot is that, I come from Magic, where buying a modern deck is going to be a small loan of an investment to get, and this game is not that so far. You can buy in with a very competitive deck for $100, $200 and get everything that you'd possibly want. The really expensive stuff and the stuff that you want to collect is all alt art stuff. So you can find cards that are going to be maybe $100, $200, but it's not going to be stuff that's required of you to build your deck in the first place.
how many main core sets are out so far? I just saw the one. Is there more? Or is
Yeah,
it
we
just
have
the first one?
3 in America.
Okay.
And there's 3 sets plus a number of starter decks, and starter decks have a couple unique cards, but they're released alongside the sets. And
Are they
does it
released
a
later
larger
in America
quantity?
than
Yeah.
Korea
yes, they are released.
or Japan?
Yeah, we're in set 3 in America and set 4 in Japan right now. And every time there's a set change, Japan will always be one ahead of us. They're always one cycle ahead of us.
It's a little weird.
Are they
I don't like
are they
that.
releasing print runs?
It's define print run for me, just so I'm on the same page.
Like what Flesh and Blood does? Total
Oh,
number of
production
boxes.
numbers.
Their production numbers.
I see. I don't know off the top of my head, I'm gonna be honest. I think they're doing fine because they're not running low on product specifically, except for the very first set, which was obviously popular and they didn't know. But so far, they've been doing quite well and keeping up with numbers.
Okay, so Richie Dubs, I gotta bring this up. Sorry, Shoop.
Yeah.
This is in reference. Richie Dubs saying here, LOL, I just heard there's an overpowered Little Mermaid combo deck. That's right.
Ooh.
Lorcana actually has a very powerful mermaid deck. So unlike Magic the Gathering's merfolk that couldn't really get there at any point, it
Oh, don't
seems
tell
as
that to
though
Pikachu.
Disney's. Oh, we had him on previously, and I will continue to tell him the same thing I told him before. I don't want to deal with blue players. I hate you guys.
Blue's very strong.
Yeah, well, I just want to play
Well, you know
my
what? It's
dang
funny. 'Cause
cards.
It's
Like-
strong in Lorcana. It's so far. It's the color that ramps in Lorcana. I just played it yesterday. Is
Well,
blue really strong in One Piece as well?
I would not say really strong. Blue is fine in One Piece.
That's something I wanted to.
Do they
ask
actually
you.
have colors?
They do,
yeah.
yes. Yeah, so-
How many different
He just said that. He
colors
was
are in
saying
their
that
pod?
your leader basically determines your color identity.
Yeah, so whatever color your leader is defines what you can add cards to your deck in. So if your leader is a blue leader, you can only add blue cards to your deck.
Are there multicolored leaders?
There are, yeah. We have dual color leaders that you can add. Nothing more than 2 and nothing less than 1 at this point. But yeah, as far as colors in the game, there's red, green, blue,
How would you go less than one color?
Colorless.
colorless,
So,
right?
maybe-
Colorless color?
That's in Magic, so it's bound to exist somewhere, right?
I'm sure. Yeah.
But yeah, we got red, green, blue, purple, black, yellow are our 6 colors right now.
And I assume it's like Magic or any other, color identity style game where those colors tend to represent a different type of play style.
That is correct. Yeah, they definitely have their own niches that they're better at than everybody else.
So
And is
when you
that
have the
like
multicolor, then
thematic representative of the like manga and the backstory of One Piece? Is red always the aggressive pirates? Is your purple the magic wielders of the world?
From what I understand, yeah, they're pretty good about grouping together the specific themes and kind of goals into specific colors from the anime. But I don't watch the anime, so I can't tell you exactly what's good or whatnot for that type
And
of stuff.
Bob, as someone who's been playing a bit of Lorcana lately, you lucky dog, did you feel that with the gameplay that you had? Were the color pies kind of representative of a certain play style?
so I mean, to be like totally honest, I only played the one game. I wish I had played more.
Okay.
I'm surprised how much I was really looking forward to it before I was cracking the cards. I know that before I went into it, I really wanted to play blue, and I was, fortunate enough that I got handed the blue deck. And I hope that we have some of those members in the audience tonight. I invited them to come. It was a lovely lady by the name of Ginger that whooped my tail. I would say that there is clearly a color identity thing. I don't know exactly what each of them are. It seems like the red green deck that she was playing felt very much like Gruul, big, beefy, stompy, smush my face inside out kind of thing. Purple seems like the tricksy, sort of magic-y color. Blue is very much the ramp color. Steel, I'm not really sure that's the gray color. Seems like it's got big beefy beats on it so far. But I don't know if I'm really defining it well. What are the colors like? What do the colors represent in One Piece? Like, can you break down like what the different colors are and what their strengths and play styles are?
Yeah, for sure. The super easy one is red. Comes across pretty much in every card game that it is the aggressive fire color. So you're going to be playing out a lot of cheaper creatures, mostly because a lot of those creatures are what we call searchers within the game. Searchers are probably the most powerful thing going on in One Piece, where essentially whenever they enter the battlefield, they look at the top some number of cards from your deck, and you'll be able to add a card of a specific type of that to your hand. And red does that the best. They've got a number of really good searchers that essentially cantrip to find you more things in your deck to keep going and be aggressive with. Very powerful.
So card draw.
It's kind of card draw. It's not draw a card. It's actually selection added to that. But yes, card draw. And red is aggressive and is best at that specifically. For the blue deck, you're really good at bouncing, just like in Magic. You're really good at putting characters back in your opponent's hand, buying tempo. You can also put cards on the bottom of their deck to be able to gain card advantage that way. Answer things that might otherwise be kind of tough to attack or be indestructible. Green is good at tapping your opponent's creatures. So I talked about how you can only attack tapped creatures ever. And green is good at coming in and tapping it immediately so that you're able to attack it before they even get a chance. So they're trying to control the game in that way. Black is super good at coming in and killing things of a specific cost. So a lot of their cards will say kill something that has 3 mana value or less, and you destroy it from the battlefield. And they're good at reducing the cost of things to help get with those effects. Purple is good at killing things of a specific power or less. So slightly different than black, where they're good at answering things that might say 3,000 power or less to try and kill. And then yellow? Yellow is very good at using triggers. So we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast, where if you get attacked and you have to add one of the cards from your life to your hand, that card might have a trigger on it, which allows you to use its effect for free, essentially. And using a trigger is better in yellow because they have a lot more of them and they're more powerful. A lot of times they're on characters that allow you to just put them in the battlefield, but they're also good at gaining life and dealing direct damage to your opponent's life. So life manipulation.
You basically don't ever have to.
I'm sorry.
You basically don't ever have to use your Dawn except for on your turn. Is that correct?
Yeah, you will never use your
still have
Dawn
to pay
unless
for
it
some
is
of the
your turn
triggers.
almost exclusively.
Okay.
So
there is no like tapping out. Well, you always, I guess she's always
Yeah, you're pretty much always going to be tapped out. There is exactly one instance where you could cast something on your opponent's turn. There's a type of card within the game called events, and events are kind of like instants. or sorceries, where they're not a character, they're not an artifact in play, they don't never come into play. They're just something you cast, they happen, and they'll go to the discard pile. And a lot of those will have a counter effect. So just like ditching cards from your hand to be able to get out of attacks, you can cast these cards to add a certain amount of power to your leader or character to get out of a specific attack for that one specific attack. So you can cast things like that.
So I just want to say to Dual Brain, you're going to have to represent and go run the putt for us since we won't be there this time. I had a question for you about the when you have multicolored bosses. Is Dawn color analogous?
Yeah, Dawn does not care. Dawn is just a generic mana or is just 1,000 attack always.
And if you miss, you start off with 1 on your first turn, and you get 2 every turn after that.
So the colors are not. I'm assuming there's no other restriction once you're able to put those cards in your deck. It's strictly just like a deck building mechanic of the game, right? That once you have them in there, I assume like if you have a red yellow commander, you can trigger a red. I'm sorry, not commander, leader. You could trigger something for your red leader or a red henchman or whatever you call it,
right,
with a yellow trigger, right?
Yeah, you get to add red and yellow cards to your deck. And those will be the cards you'll be able to play out through the rest of the game. There is like a slightly more restrictive version sometimes. You'll see cards that say, if your leader is either this specific type or this specific name, then you get this effect. So sometimes even within a color, they try and restrict it a bit, just to give it either more effect or to specifically push a specific leader in a direction that they want.
Which is kind of cool. It gives you a little bit of specialization, a little bit of deck building decision.
Yes. Yeah, the deck building is super cool.
How is the I saw that there was a tier list when he Googled One Piece leaders.
Sure.
Are there like any that are like runaways that are like so much better than the rest that they need to like chill out, or are they all pretty well balanced?
I would say that there are definitely stronger and weaker ones, but they've done an okay job at doing some banning. They've been keeping it up, and it's different ban lists for America and for Japan. So they look at the specific metas also.
Just being set ahead.
I think it's due to being a set ahead, but also just that we in America play card games very differently than people in Japan do.
The meta is different in both countries for sure.
An opinion that we've made on the Three Swords Productions channel before is that because we think Japan players, from what we've seen in Magic and in One Piece, they don't want to play aggressive decks near as much, whether that's a thing they don't like playing aggressive or whether they find it disinteresting or whatever. We have found that aggressive decks in America are usually better and kind of more streamlined because we're willing to play that. So we've noticed that aggressive decks in America generally are better than in Japan, as an interesting little note on the metas.
So I assume at this point, being only 3 sets deep, there may not be multiple formats, at least not yet.
There is not. It is just the one. There is technically a second one, which is called Buddy Battles. You can play 2v2s, kind of like a two-headed giant and Magic type effect. But it's not really a super supported format at all.
Can you free for all? Have you ever tried?
Like how they're going to support, inevitable power creep, which happens in every single game of every different type in the world.
Yeah.
It's TCGs or not. And then, so that number one, the different formats, how are they managing it besides bannings, with formats, card rotations, those kind of things, that are analogous to
right.
Not just Magic, but card games in general. How are they managing that in One Piece?
So far, they're not. They have not made any distinction that they are going to be doing any rotations or anything like that. Being 3 sets deep, I will say that their power level has felt good. You have a reason to play some of the new cards because they are just different in some different aspects, but we're still playing a lot of the set 1 cards, set 2 cards because they have their own good power within the game. It's not like they're running away with the power level of the game yet. So it feels like they have a good touch with that at least.
At this point,
I
assume they're going to have to power creep at some point in order to push cards, sell cards.
Sure.
It doesn't behoove any game to just keep producing same power level cards over and over and over again.
I will say one thing they've done to try and help sell sets a bit is that they've added new colors of leaders. We started the game with just 4 colors. In the second set, we added black, and in this last set, we added yellow. So there's a little bit more of an addition there, and it gives you more iteration with making dual colors. Yes, there is a purple.
He already said there was purple. Purple controlled by power level.
I thought that was blue. Okay.
No, that's by
bouncing tempo-ish.
No, black was the one that killed by
mana value, mana cost.
Mana value. Okay, yeah. And purple was the power value.
Do they call it mana value, or is it just called like Dawn value?
They call it just cost.
Cost. Okay.
Yes.
And what do you think is going to be the frequency of set releases going forward? Have they made any declaration of we're aiming for 2 sets per year, 1 per year? We want 1 every month if we can.
It's every 3 months so far that I can tell. Doing 1 major set release every 3 months. They've made some amount of starter decks, which are just like pre-built, ready to go decks if you wanted to go buy them. And they have usually released those alongside sets, but they've started to do some of those outside of that. We had one just about a week ago or so. They dropped 2 new decks, and those decks do have a couple unique cards in them, so you get a little bit of influx within the set itself to add a couple cards into.
Interesting.
So
How well do the card values hold up when a new set releases and boxes come out? Do they go up, down? How good is the economy side of? Say, if I buy a box, am I expected to just lose money immediately, like in Magic, or is it expected to like maybe you'll get 80? Like whenever I buy a box, I don't ever expect to make money, but can I like expect to make a good portion of it back?
Yeah, you can expect to get some amount of it back. An interesting thing about us being 3 months ahead of, or 3 months behind Japan, is that there's some amount of the meta determined a little bit. So some of the power level of the cards is already shown, and we kind of have an idea of, okay, this card is pretty good versus this one not being. So yeah, there are cards that are generally more expensive or less expensive in their rarities. But also when you open packs, you're kind of playing a lottery of opening that alternate art that's worth.
Right. I saw some cards that were multiple hundreds of dollars on the U.S. market side. I know that the Japanese collector market is still alive and thriving in so many different trading card games. Now, is that something that you foresee going forward will be the way that they make collector's pieces? Will that they'll stay as alternate art? Or do you think that the power crease will... yeah, I like your quick answer.
No, I think they just did a 25th anniversary promo release where they made 5 promos of already existing cards and printed them out. And that went, those are pretty expensive at this point, and they're pretty collectible because they're alternate arts of specific things. The only cards they've made outside of sets themselves that are unique, they've done a couple promos specifically. And those promos can be got by playing in tournaments generally, whether online or offline tournaments. And you get
they have an online tournament scene. Is it hosted through a specific client or just webcam?
It is just webcam.
Okay.
The promo thing that you're talking about, is that the one with like the 5 different games of Bandai? Or is your
yeah, I don't think it's anything in specific. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but when you enter a tournament, you get what is it called, a tournament pack. Yeah, so they did just do that for Gen Con, where they released that pack of cards. That is true. That one right there is a unique card.
Worth money, because they got this for free.
That card is decent. Probably not played a whole lot competitively, but you'll find some decks they'll probably play it for that one piece card.
Is there a multiplayer format for it?
Not currently. Just 1v1.
Do you see anything that would be prohibitive specifically to making a multiplayer format?
That's interesting.
Thank you.
I think,
and he's handsome too. If you didn't know,
yeah,
I know normally higher picture quality really holds up.
It doesn't look entirely It doesn't look like it can't support multiplayer. Like, what would prevent it from being a decent multiplayer format, like a free for all type situation?
Yeah. So an interesting thing I think there would be a lot of times in Magic or in some other card games, you have something in play that can stop your opponent from attacking you directly, right? and coming straight at you. Magic does that well in Commander by you play something big to the field, and your opponent might struggle to attack past that to get to you to do the damage to kill you. With a multiplayer format in One Piece, we're dealing with you adding cards to your hand from being attacked out of your life. But you have no other way to defend other than pitching cards for counter. So if everybody kind of decided that you were the one that they wanted out of the game, they could just kind of do that with current rules. So you could try and add more life, but that would add a lot more cards to the game and make it a lot longer. You might have to make some kind of higher power attack or something
How long
to
are the
try and get
games
going.
normally?
It's a best of one format, so just the one game. And that one game can be over in 10 minutes or it can be over in about a half hour. They're pretty quick.
Oh, so they're still pretty
Not
quick.
too bad.
Yeah.
Are there deck outs?
If you draw your entire deck somehow and deck out, you lose the game.
Is that something that would just be near unachievable?
It is almost exclusively unachievable, except for one specific leader that came out this last set in set 3.
Mill
Nami
leader?
is a blue leader, and that blue leader self-mills, and she has a special ability on her that says whenever you mill your entire deck, you win the game instead.
Oh,
I was
okay.
about to ask, are there alternate win cons?
Thassa's Oracle. There we go.
That is, I think, actually the only one currently in the game. Nothing else says you win or lose the game specifically.
Interesting.
That'll be an interesting field for them to pursue.
Yeah.
You know, the different
Yeah, I think they have many
mechanics, the way
avenues
that
to explore.
phenomenal. Yeah, it seems like it's an interesting game. Do you see a lot of uptick in it? Is it popular? Do you have a lot of players? I mean, your channel seems to be doing pretty well, and it's almost exclusively One Piece gameplay. Are you getting a lot of feedback? Do you have a Discord server you want to share a link to where people can play with you?
Yeah, I can definitely grab the Discord link here and I'll post it in the chat or whatever. But
yeah, put it in a private chat and I'll be able to link it for you.
sounds great. The community itself is great. There's a decent amount of players. To tout our specific channel specifically, we're a little over 1,000 subscribers, so there's some amount of interest, and we're pretty much just a gameplay channel. So you can imagine channels that do deck box openings or talk about the news of the game that have much more than us too. But when you want to go to one of these tournaments, it's generally sold out pretty quickly to try and get these tournaments. And
That's good news.
we went, we did the live coverage for Arlington, Texas Treasure Cup, and that was one of the biggest at the time tournaments, and we had about 1,000 people, a little over 1,000 people at that tournament. So it was pretty sizable, and that's about the size they're trying to go for.
Have they banned leaders yet, or only cards so far?
Only cards so far. They have not banned any leaders.
Because I like the whole Flesh and Blood thing where they have the Living Legends thing. If you're not familiar, they basically as the Flesh and Blood commanders or leaders,
Right.
as they win tournaments, they gain these points that goes towards a certain threshold. Once they hit that threshold, they get banned permanently.
Yes,
and it
I'm-
works separately in the two different formats that they
Yeah,
have.
Blitz
both-
versus
yeah.
constructed.
yeah.
So they have nothing like that in One Piece.
There's nothing like
so
that
far.
currently. I do love that, and I think that would be something
Yeah.
that would be smart of them to try and implement.
Very
I would
much,
say one of the best leaders has had most of its cards banned from it in the first place. So it would be interesting to ban that leader and maybe switch some things up instead of trying to ban all the cards instead.
So, do they have differences in the artwork between the Japanese releases and the U.S. releases?
I believe no. I believe they are all the same.
That's
They have changed some of the revenues that you can get them from. For instance, there was a land series they did in Japan, a Dawn series they did in Japan, where you can get 10 unique, different looking colored Dawn in a pack together, and it was $30. And then they did that same series in America, but they didn't sell it as one pack. You instead got them by entering tournaments in the promo packs.
Okay.
And you only got one at a time instead of 10. And then
Not as great.
Yeah, they went from being a set of $30 in Japan to being one of those being over $100, $150 in America. So
Wow.
they've done some slight differences in the way they distribute them, but nothing different in their releases of the actual arts of the cards so far.
Have they ever changed a card's functionality from Japan to America?
I don't believe
Like,
so.
have they ever? Yeah, let's say that'd be very strange. I don't like the whole staggered release thing. I've never played a TCG that's done it to my knowledge, but I know that I play a game called Black Desert Online. Black Desert does their Korea patch. Typically, we're like 1 to 2 patches behind all the time, so you always get to see what they get first, and then we get that trickled in whenever they feel like it. And I always kind of feel like that's a little strange. Like, what's the point of
In some
staggering? I
way,
just don't get it.
in some way, every game that prints in multiple languages really does that. I mean, Flesh and Blood, they didn't print any foreign language cards until History Pack 1, and that was
Yeah.
a couple
Well-
years, I believe, into it. And Magic the Gathering, in a similar ilk, you don't get simplified Chinese cards until well after their American releases.
Well, no,
it
but that's
just-
not the same.
It is
They're
just the other
intentionally
way.
staggering the release. They're releasing it in Japan
Yeah.
first, and then they're waiting however many months, 3 months.
Hmm.
Like, that's
think
not
it's
just
just a-
because they don't have the printing of the language. That's because they're intentionally releasing it
Hmm.
Japan
Okay.
first, and then it's a model of it seems like overseas companies do, because Korea does it, Japan does it. I don't know why. There's like it's like exclusive to their
Yeah.
country. Maybe I don't
Well,
know. It's something.
if-
It's something weird. I
If
don't
I
like it.
may, what I
Sure.
know from living overseas and growing up around foreign language in South Florida, not every language has direct translations. Not only that, they don't even just not have direct translations for words. There are sometimes concepts that they just don't have a word for. For example, there are countries and languages that they only have one word for killing. Like in the United States, killing is different than murder versus like accidental manslaughter. We have lots of different words for killing. And different countries, some of them, they just have one word. It's just death. Just it's one person causing the death of another person.
Yeah.
I think.
And
And so
humor
those
as
subtle
well in
nuances
some aspects.
in
Yeah.
games can be problematic when you go into the translation. That while they might have a loosely translated word, it may make subtle differences in the mechanics of how the game or a specific card can function.
And it
And in
is
video
an
games as well.
interesting imagery because it's produced in Japan, and there are certain laws against what you can put on trading cards. I know excessive blood and skulls are and ghosts for some reason as well. I believe there is some printing liability stuff there. So yeah, there's got to be a lot as far as the cultural influence. And I think having that exclusivity built into them as the Asian Pacific market, not normally where a lot of the production comes from as far as the language model. So I think it would be something for them to be very pleased in touting a year of exclusivity, 3 months if it were. Which
They might
honestly,
just literally have some issues with
the
production
translation of it
schedules
in
and pushing it out and going, oh wow, we got to make sure that the number one, like you said, the legal aspect is covered, that the translation works from country to country to make sure that the cards are still, that the game's still doing what the game is supposed to do when you translate the words. Because in our games, cardboard games, words matter very much.
Yeah.
One word.
Yeah.
The difference between may and and not having the word may in a card, which in a different language, may might be a very different kind of term. It can change how a card functions immensely. So I'm sure that they have some of these issues when you're translating from language to language that may not be as far ahead of the curve as production runs might want to be released at.
I don't know about that. I'm not sold on that. I think it's just that they're a Japanese creator and Japanese publisher, and they're like, they get our game first, and you guys can get the scraps later.
I think an interesting part about this too that came out with this last set was towards the end of set 3 in Japan, they did some bannings of 2 specific cards that they felt like were really affecting the format. And then us in America, they instituted we're starting these bans immediately before you guys even get to play the game, which really kind of warped the way we approached the entire set in the first place. And it created some decks that Japan didn't even like try and create on because they had a different format essentially at the time.
Yeah, I don't like
Were
that.
they any chase cards, or were they some of the lower fodder?
No, they were I think an uncommon and a rare. So nothing prohibitively expensive towards opening
A
packs.
similar instance I had was opening Commander Legends, Magic the Gathering product, the original one. There were Hole Breacher. Originally, when the set came out, was a very sought after card. If played in a friendly group, it's not terribly egregious. I've personally used it and had it used against me. And if you're playing in a very friendly atmosphere, not too bad. But as we know, a lot of Magic the Gathering players don't always harbor a friendly social atmosphere. So it got banned. Now, I've opened more than a few boxes of that product. Always fun. We actually got to open one recently for a Commander Raids multiplayer cooperative experience. So really fun stuff there. And the set's super good, but it lost a lot of value with that banning. So it's good to hear that some of the higher, more sought after pricey cards are not getting that loss when you're opening up the product.
Right.
Now, as far as opening the product, one of the things I wanted to ask about was different rarities. Magic originally had just common, uncommon, and rare, if it even had rarities, really. Now, does One Piece do something similar, or does it have a whole list of different cards you can get? I know that's very common with Japanese manufacturing.
Yeah, I believe the rarities we're going with right now are common, uncommon, rare, super rare, which is a step above, secret rare, which is a step above, and then just alt arts, leaders, and dons as other slots in the packs.
So about 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that
How
would
rare are
be-
the super rares?
Are they super rare?
The super and secret
Don't-
rares
don't say
are
super rare.
pretty rare. I don't know exact pack odds off the top of my head, but generally most super and secret rares are gonna probably fetch you anywhere from like $10 to $40 probably.
Are there 36 or 24 packs in a box, or are they doing something weird?
24.
I'm gonna go with 24. I don't think I've actually opened a pack myself, honestly.
Oh, really? Okay, so you're not a pack opener.
No, I'm always a singles guy. To be fair, I work.
Way to do it, honestly.
To be fair, I work for Star City Games, so I guess I've got insider ideas about that, but whatever.
So one
Probably get a little bit of a
trading
discount,
card
you
game
know?
Pillars of Strength is 12 cards per pack and 24 packs per box.
That makes sense.
Question: are they Japanese sized cards, or are they like big American hand sized cards?
Yeah, they're standard sleeve style cards. So the American style Magic.
Hey man, I've been to Japan twice. My hips never fit in any of their airplanes. Okay, I just built different. What can I say?
Hey, man, I also don't fit in most airplanes. Don't ever, if you're a big dude like me, I'm 6'5", about 290 pounds. Don't ever try to fly Spirit Airlines. You will have the most cramped time of your life. It is rough.
That was the worst plane flight ever.
It was. It was.
spent the
It
whole
was.
flight
you-
like
I
this
was
with
literally
the
like
back leg in my
this.
seat.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I had a crick in my neck by the time we got to Vegas. I'll tell you that.
I'm
It was
almost
not great.
happy. I'm almost happy, honestly, that they canceled my last flight when so went to Gen Con, had terrible travel on the way back. Long story, but American Airlines is now like my most hated enemy, and at first I was really unhappy that they canceled my flight and I had to take a 13-hour train ride, but then I was really happy that I didn't have to fly American Airlines one more time.
Was the train ride? I actually have never been on like a long
Thanks,
form
Robbie.
train. Was it like a bench type seating, or did you have like your own little like room?
Nah, dude, I was wicked comfy. So
Was it like the Harry Potter where you like had like the bed where you can like sleep
No,
in, like a
no,
couch?
no. They do have those, but
Uh huh.
I'm not that kind of guy. That would have been
Okay.
like as much
not
as
trying to be
like
bougie?
No.
For a
This was
13-hour
Amtrak.
train ride, I might have been bougie for that day.
No. I needed a train that left in the next few hours. I arrived
True,
at
you can't
Union
be
Station
picky,
at
yeah.
2:30 in the morning. I was just looking to
Yeah.
get out of town, dude. No, it was
Fair
actually
enough.
pretty comfy though. It was like fake leather seats, pretty, bouncy and all that, and you could recline. But I was in the quiet car, So everybody had to be quiet like it was a library. You couldn't listen to
Hmm.
music without headphones on. You couldn't talk out loud. It was either sleep or just look out the freaking window, which is exactly what I wanted to do. There was nobody on a train in Washington, D.C. I needed to speak with. Neither did I need to talk with anybody in Newark, New Jersey. You know, when we rolled through New York, I didn't want to talk to any of those people either. We just kept going further north, and I just kept looking out the window, and it was actually pretty chill. They had one of those concession cars all the way in the back, so I was able to get myself a $9 adult beverage and further enjoy looking out the window. Yeah, it was pretty decent. We stopped in New Haven, Connecticut. Not pretty decent, but I was able to go outside and stretch my legs for a little bit on the train platform and get right back to it. I do like train rides, gotta say. It's actually something I'm planning on doing is getting you know, Bob's not having it. No.
Oh,
It's
dude, I had to
better
take
than
a
driving.
train from Miami to Norfolk. It was like 20 plus
Virginia.
hours.
Oh geez,
I
that's
got
not
on
great.
I got on the train and there's this like 90-year-old Spanish lady spoke no English in my seat. I'm like, you're in my seat. She said, okay. I'm like, oh, F me. So I had to go sit in the bar car on these hard, like Formica seats. About an hour into crashing in there, there's the kids that came and started playing Yahtzee in there. I'm like, are you kidding?
I'd join them, man. All right, let's play some Yahtzee.
I wanted to
right.
sleep. It was the most
Random people.
miserable travel experience of my life. I will never. I don't
Hey,
know what I'd rather
Twiddler.
do less. I would rather fly Spirit Air again than
It's
take
faster.
a train ride. It was that
It's
bad. It was
it's
terrible.
faster, but honestly, you know, I had a pretty decent time. Nobody sat next to me. The seat in front of me only had one person in it, and they were like, kitty cornered over. Everybody was, pretty chill. And I could just like get up and walk around and use the bathroom whenever I needed to. It wasn't bad. There was
Oh.
no screaming kid in my
My seat
area.
only had one person in it. It just wasn't me.
So, Sheep, what do you
Yeah,
think
right.
about trains?
I've
Now
actually
we're-
never
now
ridden
we're
a train, so I don't know that I
podcast.
have any strong opinions towards trains, unfortunately.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think I've ever been on a train for any length of period of time.
Do you mind if I ask you, kind of off One Piece
Yeah, go for it.
kind of questions? So you said you work for Star City Games.
I do.
Do you get what kind of benefits does that bring for like going to conventions and tournaments and that kind of thing?
Benefits for myself. Well,
yes, not for me because Star City Games hasn't sent me.
right.
No,
Voucher for
it
anything.
benefits for the community. They get to talk to Shoop, Bob. Come on.
Yeah,
No, for you.
Ooh.
Like, is it nice working for Star City Games regarding like tournament travel and all that kind of stuff? Or
Yeah, so I'm not on the events team or anything like that. I don't deal with events at all, really, as my day-to-day job. So as far as me traveling to events, it would be purely at my own leisure if I wanted to go. So there's no real benefit towards me going there. If I worked for the events team, then yeah, you get, stipends for, traveling and all that type of stuff. But for me, I don't get that.
so you
Does
don't get
Chris
like
work for
benefits
the-
like hey, there's Gen Con per se coming up, and here's a discount. We'll cover X or nothing like that. For working
No,
for Star City Games? That's
we
fine.
don't have that there.
As far as
Because
because
I work for
of
Sherwin
your
Williams,
position
and I get a
specifically.
discount on paint, man. Like,
Oh wow.
I'm
Hey,
sure he
man,
gets a discount on cards if he wanted to buy some cards.
Yeah, there's employee discounts towards the store itself, but not
Yeah,
towards
so
events.
they
That's
get
all.
their own form of discounts, just not on events, which makes sense.
See,
I'm sure the
We're trying to
events
find
what's
sponsors to pay for our travel. That's part of what Commander Raids. I don't know if they talked to you about that yet.
Nah.
That's what we're hoping to get out of Commander Raids maybe someday is that people will want it so badly they'll want us to come out and teach people
Sure.
how to play, run events,
to
that kind of
participate, yeah, and stuff like that.
It's a
Yeah,
Commander
I
Raids
can
is
tell
a
you that,
cooperative format
yeah.
that we've created that you take your commander deck and you face against a raid monster.
Okay.
If you've ever been to any of the conventions where they Magic the Gathering themselves have hosted something called the Boss Monster, it's cooperative as well, but it's very generic. It's like a 1d6, and like 2 of the results are like you get a
post a
ticket.
link in
Your
the,
your team
chat.
gets like a little prize, and I'm like, I played it and I'm like, wow, this is boring as hell. So then when we
So
came
it's
back
funny.
from it,
I was supposed to do that when we went to Gen Con, and I was like 20 minutes late, so I just didn't even hassle him about it. We just had way more fun hanging out and doing other things. We actually got to play with a rando while we were at Gen Con. We were talking
Yeah.
to a couple of other enthusiasts, and he sounded very interested. So we pulled out one of the incredible apps that Matt has made. There's actually an
Yeah,
app
and
you
a
can
card.
get so you can. Oh yeah, it's not backwards. Hey, look at you.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Yeah, just don't
This
pay
is our
attention to the
Commander
Discord
raid.
link. That one's dead.
Yeah, the Discord. I specifically picked "Do Not Expire," but it still expired, so I don't know what to
Yeah.
say. But yeah, so Bob here made a commander token. This is the stop focusing on my face, camera. There we go. This is the token that that we created for the boss monster or the raid
Heavy
monster that
played
it
token.
creates.
Okay.
It's not actually heavy plate; it's ink. That's like the gold ink from like the back of the card here. And like this, for some reason, on the back of each one of these cards, so each one of them have like their own weird. That's not heavy play marks. Those are like that's ink.
Hmm.
It's like gold ink around all the edges for some reason.
So
It's like they didn't.
it's a
Either way, doesn't
PvE
matter.
format that nobody runs the boss monster. It's not like Arch Enemy.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
It's
basically, you're all on the same team. Either you all win or you all lose.
There's an increasing amount of dice rolls on a D20 random table, and as you progress further in the game, the number of effects become what really does all the damage to you.
Gotcha.
We have it set up as well so that it scales to the number of participants. So you can either go single player and its life total is greatly reduced, and you can goldfish your decks, kind of have a practice play. And you can also go ahead and increase the number of players, get up to a 4-player pod, and have a much stronger experience and really, hang out with your friends. And since it's cooperative,
Yeah.
player versus environment, it's pretty social, low, whether you go low power, it's definitely low impact on how much you have to, really.
It's the salt
The
free
salt,
format.
yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah,
Because
there's
it's
no
not
real
salty at all.
animosity, yeah, because it's
Eh,
either
I disagree. I get salty some of the times when like it constantly like kills your creatures and it constantly does something.
yeah.
You're like a graveyard
Yeah.
deck and it constantly keeps exiling your graveyard. I get salty a little bit. But
It's
I'm a
as
competitive guy. I like
salty
winning,
as,
so
it's as salty
But
as
it's not
playing
salty
D&D
versus the
and getting
players.
all the
Yeah.
Right.
losing saving throws.
Yeah,
yeah,
would you-
it's as salty as in Dungeons and Dragons when you roll a natural 1 4 times in a row and you're like, "Come, can I get a break?"
Sure.
Like at all,
Yeah,
like
right.
hello.
Would you
But
say?
yeah, it's go
would you
ahead.
say max size of that is 4 players? Would you not?
No,
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I've,
I've
uh,
done
I
it up
haven't
to
actually-
tried with more than 4 yet because of
I've done
limitations
6.
on spell table.
Sure.
yeah, I did 5 at my LGS. All new players. It was the store owner that actually really pushed me into like hosting for him.
Yeah.
I had printed out a number of the Google Docs that I just sent you a link in the comment section
Yeah.
there. Printed out a number of those and handed it out to some very interested players and was able to kind of host, as it were, a 5-player game of it. And like I said, because everybody was playing together, it was very easy to get the right atmosphere to a game. Too often do I feel the try hard attitude when I get on and play against
Right.
people, and
Yeah, he is. That's the try hard.
it's
Yeah,
nice
I
to
always
have
want
a,
to win. Yeah.
uh,
I
it's
will
nice
say
to have
that
a good attitude about it. Yeah.
But that helps smooth it out so that when you're playing, and I'm sorry, I don't. We have you on as a guest, and here we
No,
are
you're fine. This is
blathering on
interesting.
about
Yeah. Go.
Commander raids. But that's what's nice about being able to play a game
Oop, wrong
in a
guy.
pod with the tryhards. It doesn't. You're not like, oh God, I don't want to play in that pod because that guy always comes out and brings his CEDH win turn 0 deck. That it kind of smooths it out to where you can have different play styles. And it's okay to have the guy that's the try hard and the other one to sit back and doesn't really care much because it's a team effort. So it helps smooth some of that out as well. And it's great for teaching new people because you play with your hands up, so you share information and you can direct new players on what's the optimal line, that kind of stuff. So
Right.
I love it. I do. But that's not what I wanted to ask you. Something I ask most of the guests that come on here.
Are you gonna like and subscribe to our videos?
No.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
I never asked that. What questions do you have of us as players, content creators, et cetera, et cetera? I'm sure you got to have some questions coming on here.
Yeah.
Not anything, and I'm wide open. So fire away.
Yeah, I kind of looked through all your videos you guys got going there. It looks like you're trying to really spread out to a lot of different card games. What are you trying to aim for the channel kind of in the future here? What are you trying to do? Because it seems like it's not just Magic anymore. It's kind of a bit more than that.
To be honest, you're absolutely 100% correct. And I keep pushing. We all three kind of have somewhat different ideas of where exactly the channel wants to go. And one of the things to keep me here is that we talk about there's no holds barred. Like,
Right.
I doubt we'll ever get sponsorship
Yeah.
because we'll say whatever the hell we feel like as honestly as possible. It's sort of a confessional, and it helps people in the audience to, for just that reason, that we don't want to be fettered by, some sort of motive, right?
Mhm.
So we'll talk about whatever game, whether it's Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever Matt's playing at the moment, or One Piece. We don't want to be handcuffed that way. We want to be able to bring people like you on and talk about One Piece.
Maybe
and
it's
we don't wanna be
the
hampered
new
by,
Legions, Legions Realms at War. We want to talk about all the card games,
Dude,
whether it's Flesh
I
and
opened
Blood.
the best card in that bountiful pack.
But what we'll do is we want to be able to talk candidly with everyone about everything.
Maybe
Kind of most things geek. We even talk about movies and shit. And
Sure.
feel free to cut loose and speak your mind here. We're not worried about like monetization and
No.
and we can't talk shit about Card Guard because they sponsor us. Play with your Card
Right,
Guard.
yeah.
It's like no, we
So we want to have
that's sort of the deal. Is we want
place to hang out, indulge in the stuff that we're having fun with, all the things that as a trading card game player, I know that right now Magic's in a terrible spot for me, so I want to have other options. I've got a couple of boxes and decks for Flesh and Blood that I've really been getting into. I've heard about all these other trading card games as well, and
We were supposed to
luckily
play
enough-
Flesh and Blood in Gen Con. I forgot. Whoops.
Yeah, I didn't
Sorry,
bring my.
I was the wet, I was the wet blanket at Gen Con because my diabetes and hurt feet and shit really kind of put a damper on. So I left early.
You were phenomenal, Bob. I'm glad we got a Brazilian steakhouse, Rodizio style. I'm glad that we
Oh, that
went
was
out
awesome.
and really treated ourselves to a Commander Legends box opening experience. So we're about all sorts of different avenues of our enthusiasm as players.
Sure.
Whether it's one game or another, we talk about all sorts of different stuff. I think that's really what I want to bring to it. And we even did a little bit of like Minecraft stuff behind the scenes, and we're thinking about doing a server kind of thing. We had a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, so it's all sorts of different stuff, just real geeky, no neck beard, but just having a good time on the internet with some folks. Yeah, 5 o'clock shadow, I get it. He's just got regular beard.
So in essence, we don't want to focus on anything specific. And I know that YouTube really punishes us for not specifying. And we've even had, it was funny that Nikachu, I think one of his parting statements behind the scenes was, you guys should be a lot more popular than you are. It's I giggle, and hopefully people will find value in it. Hopefully you enjoy being here tonight. I enjoy having you as a guest. Very interesting to hear about One Piece. The only thing I knew before you came on tonight, to be quite frank, is that it was an anime and it's a game that's blowing up.
Yeah.
I saw that giant sign that they had outside of Gen Con
Right.
For One Piece, and I was like, it's unfortunate it probably got a bit overshadowed by the Lorcana shenanigans that went on.
Yeah, they had a pretty sizable tournament there. I don't remember exactly what type of tournament it was. I think it was a Treasure Cup. But
yeah, there it is.
But they had a pretty sizable cup at tournament there at Gen Con, so it was pretty big.
I mean, and just to give people some kind of frame of reference
Here's
here.
a car. Yeah, like
the fact that they gave them that big of a sign, and
yeah,
you can't even see like all the other little signs in the windows. And when I say little signs, they're little signs advertising
over
for all the
100,000 people attended the
10,000
event.
games that are there. So One Piece having a statement like that says something.
No,
about
it wasn't
One
that
Piece,
high.
Sure. What's that?
He said over 100,000 people attended. It wasn't that
Yeah, I
high. There
believe
was something
so.
that I. No, there was something that was released.
They said it was over 70,000. I know that they were shooting for 80, but it was,
something like
they
that.
said over 70.
Still,
They said it broke records. It was like
yes.
77,000 or something
Wow.
like that.
that's 10% of the entire state that I live in.
Oh, there was a lot of people there.
Yeah.
We did a live stream and
surprised I
walked
didn't
through the
get
halls,
sick.
and it was not even at its busiest part.
That's crazy.
And I'll tell you what, I'm really glad that they got to meet you at Gen Con and bring you here on the stream tonight. That's definitely kind of like when we went to Vegas, Matt and I met Gavin Dugan. I don't know if you know who he is.
I don't.
He's one of the co-creators of the Commander format.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Him and
He
Sheldon
plays
Netterman.
Commander, so
Yeah.
he's aware
And
of
he
it.
came on our podcast some months ago. Excellent, really smart dude. Really makes you feel dumb when you're in the room with him. And not in a bad way. It's just he's one of those
Right.
when you know you're mentally outclassed,
Yeah.
you're like, oh damn, I feel like an idiot. He's just one of those super smart, like geneticist AI kind of guys at
Gotcha.
Google. And it's like, oh shit, I don't even know what that means. But we're fortunate, and that's one of the things I'll say that I want to continue to have happen is bring guests like you on and lots of different people from different walks of the gaming world.
Yeah.
It always startles me. Like we had Nikachu on. We've had big names that people know.
Right.
They don't know who the hell we are.
We had Ruth Thompson on. She was one of the early artists for Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
We've had Gavin Dugan. Like I said, I think Gavin Dugan is probably our highest no name, like the highest name that a lot of people don't know who he is,
Right.
but he's actually
Right,
very
yeah,
important.
yeah.
He's like almost as important as like Sheldon Menery, basically.
Right.
And he's a really cool dude. He plays Destiny 2,
Absolutely.
plays like just really cool dude.
Yeah.
Hopefully get
Really,
to
really
maybe he'll come on.
And
one
also,
more.
we get to just talk with other content creators, game lovers of all sorts of different walks of life.
Right.
We're gonna have a guy from AAW Games. He'll be on the podcast over the next couple weeks, maybe a month. I don't know. We have to schedule it, but he does some third party creation for Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition. They're like a third party generator for that kind of stuff. So like module generated. Like they just had Rise of the Drow, a new module that they brought out at Gen
Looking forward
Con.
to that one, actually.
We're actually really cool. The guy that's going to be doing a podcast. I'm not 100% sure on what his role is at AEW Games. I think he's the co-creator, but I could be making that up. But anyways, he's going to be running a game for us because we played at Gen Con, and the Dungeon Master that we had was... I don't want to say bad,
Let's not talk about her. Let's
but
forget
like
about her.
less than desirable,
Oh,
not my
yeah.
taste.
Gotcha. Okay.
When I'll never forget Matt asking her, did the creatures attack? And she goes, nah.
Yeah, two rounds went by, and I asked her, I'm like, hey, did the creatures go yet? And she's like, oh no. And I'm like, she's like, it's fine. I'm like, what the?
And she goes, oh, the monster hit you. Matt says, for how much? She goes, a lot.
She's like, just take a lot of
Whatever
damage.
Take a bunch of health. Yeah.
I'm like, 50? And she's like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. I'm like, okay.
That was interesting.
Well, I think it
Also,
was an
she rolled the
interesting
hit, and then
experience.
she's like,
Yeah.
does a 25 hit any of you? And I'm like, that's not how this game works at all.
Yeah. It was
anyways.
definitely an interesting experience, and
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things about playing games and getting to talk to other people about playing games is that you get these different experiences and styles. Like you were talking about how there are different ban lists in One Piece. You've got the American and Japanese ban lists specifically and mostly because of how the different play styles translate in the different cultures.
Right.
And I think that DM was a great example of a terrible time because I didn't enjoy their play style. Same thing.
I don't think
I've
any
got
of
a buddy, Dave. Nothing makes him giggle more than counterspelling me in Magic the Gathering.
I'm talking
Now,
about
I want to
BBD.
punch him in his tiny little chest, but what I'm actually going to do is just say, hey, it's great that we got to play together. I don't like the way that you did that. Later on, we got to meet someone that's a writer for AAW Games, and they were phenomenal. We got to talk about the different play styles that they enjoy, that they get into. We're not
Claire's
really
her name,
heading
by the
into-
way. I forgot her name, but Claire's
thank
the
you,
name.
yep.
So I don't want to, disregard anybody else, and I'm sorry for cutting in, but because I had to alternate here, my battery's just about dead on my laptop. But we've had a lot of wonderful guests, and that's to answer your question. I'm sorry, you asked a very innocuous question.
No,
I
you're
gave you
fine.
Like a half an hour answer here. But all of those things, generally, just in the most broad terms, we want to continue to talk geek.
And that's great
Yeah.
because
Also,
had the
special
12 Timmy
announcement
on, we
secret.
had Hometown TCG. We've had, just
Oh,
lots
yeah.
and lots of different people on here.
The channel is going to be rebranded here in the next week or so. So
the
the
second
people that are
time.
watching now get the insight.
Yeah.
The name is
you're
going to be
still
very
here.
familiar to you guys. Very, very familiar. Almost as if you were watching the name of the show
Yep.
that we're changing the channel's name to.
We're going to
Very,
go
very
by
familiar.
MTG Gaming Pat. Okay.
All right, guys, I'm going to dip before
Yeah.
my battery tells me, just in the mid sentence. So
No,
thank you
as
so much
always,
for
phenomenal. Yeah.
entertaining here tonight. I'm sorry, is Shoop? Is that?
yes,
Yep.
it's my last name. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on tonight. You guys can continue to talk, but my laptop's going to tell me no.
Take care, Bob.
It was
As
nice meeting you,
always.
Bob.
Yeah, man.
Peace.
Yeah, Shoop,
Good luck.
I wanted to circle back around about commander rates because you'd asked a question. We kind of generically answered it
No, it's fine.
about how many players could actually have. And I wanted to kind of just go in a little bit more of the design philosophy because we did create this game or
Right.
this format or whatever you want to call it. In theory, the way that the monster or the raid monsters roles are designed is that in theory it should be able to support literally any number of players because everything's a global effect. Everything targets everybody, but it doesn't in a way where like some are global, like destroy all creatures. That's something that we tried to stray away from because in the original boss monster mechanic, it was like if you rolled a 4, destroy all creatures every time, destroy all. It's just every time, and it was just like on a D6 when you're destroying all creatures every other turn, it got really boring and really redundant. So we tried to shape it up. Now there's 20 results because you roll a D20. Now there's 20 results, and they each have different things that they have. Some of them are global effects that say destroy all enchantments. Some of them are destroy target enchantment with the highest converted mana cost on everybody's side of the field. So you do have some counterplay where you can say make your thing indestructible. Some of it's sacrifice, but because the raid monster's HP scales by the number of players, and also scales, it should be able to globally scale based on the results always affecting everybody. In theory, like I said, it should be able to support any number of players. And it's a really good format to bring in new players because since it's a cooperative format, there is there's not necessarily a feels bad of like kicking you. Like I have so many good decks that I can like grab and play that are very powerful that can like destroy any command. Like somebody comes in with like a commander precon. I have so many decks that can destroy those, but like it doesn't really help a newcomer into the game really enjoy the game. Sometimes people like getting destroyed, sometimes they don't. But yeah, so to answer your question a little bit more detail, I think
Sure.
that it's on version 3 right now. We haven't actually iterated on it much since version 3.
Yeah,
I'm not in.
we've
We've been trying to we've been taking feedback from the player base. We do have a Discord that is strictly commander raids, and we were receiving feedback on it. Also, I don't know how much of a roguelike player you are. I have a format that I've been creating called the Gauntlet mode, and the Gauntlet mode is designed to instead of fighting one raid monster and like that's it. It's designed to be a multi-tiered raid where you go through a gauntlet of multiple monsters, and these raid monsters, they're not just a bag of hit points and the rolls. They're a bag of hit points, the rolls. Now they have a global ability that always is active. So, for instance, Sheoldred has no mercy effect, always active. So that means that anytime a creature deals damage to her, destroy that creature. She also has, whenever you draw a card, you lose 2 life. So not only does she has the chart that you roll off of, which is specialized to her, you also are fighting her lieutenants before you even get to fight her. And the thing that makes it more like a roguelike is that there are boons that you get after defeating each of her lieutenants. You get to shuffle up a boon deck, you draw a boon, and the boon can be as simple as basically like a mana rock, or it could be as simple or as crazy as at the beginning of your upkeep, gain 1 life for each card in your hand, or anytime you would draw 1 card outside of the first card you draw each turn, draw 2 cards instead. Like there are all kinds of crazy boons that you can get. There's different rarities of boons. So if you like really like gritty, it's really fun. Like going through the getting your boons can definitely change how you play, and that's also cooperative.
Interesting. Yeah, it's pretty cool too.
That's one of the.
And I
things
have
I
art
find
for all of the
interesting.
cards. I have AI generated art for everything, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, I don't know. The Commander Raids format is really fun. I get a little bored of it after some time that just a standard raid monster, because I think my competitive mind or my ADD mind or both versus the normal raid monster. I just kind of get like I can play about 5 to 10 games, but then after that I'm like maybe even less than that. I want more, so that's why I created this other format, the Gauntlet mode. So far it's really cool. The monster doesn't attack though. That's the one thing we don't. It's hard to dictate how a raid monster would attack, because I would like them to attack, but right now any monsters that they create, they're defenders. Just because finding a way to describe how a raid monster attacks is strange. But there are effects that like taunt all your creatures to attack as
Sure.
it creates like death touchers that are defenders, and then it taunts your creatures so that like there's like a decision to basically whoever goes after the raid monster is in a bad spot because all of their creatures might die, but then it'll clear the way for the rest of your team to go through, and maybe they find ways to tap their creatures down to avoid that so that your creatures can get in there.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of it's more interactive than it ever has been, I would say, the format, because at first the format was very much destroy all creatures, destroy all enchantments, destroy all artifacts. Like that was kind of it, and that was how it was just a big bag of hit points, very little interaction, very little ways to reply to the creatures because they are still casting spells.
Yeah.
And you can counter them, kind of. Counter spells obviously very strong. We felt that because there's 4 players and only 1 monster, that the counter spells won't work as you hope. It doesn't just stop the ability; it actually forces a reroll. That's like the best way that we found to make it more even.
Gotcha.
So like, yeah. So I don't know. Give it a shot if you like. If you like Commander, if you like cooperative, maybe give it a shot with your friends. It's all free, so
Yeah, I got a friend group that we play a bunch of kind of weird formats a lot of times, and this is probably something that we'll probably give a roll to here. It looks
Yeah,
seems
the
awesome.
only thing it requires is a D20, couple of buddies, and honestly, not even that.
Yeah,
because,
right.
Like I said, you can play solo. So just pull up the Google Doc, roll a die. It's got all of the preamble for the rule set itself. And we actually put out 3 modes for it already, an easy, normal, and brutal mode, as it were. And all of the incredible gauntlet mode stuff that Matt's been doing is all covered on the Discord server.
Sure.
And it's really community driven. As you can see, Richie Dubs here is commenting on how the raid monster is weak to Maelstrom pulls,
True.
And
yeah, because all the tokens it creates is the same name. So if you have something that removes everything of the same name, then that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
so some of the play mechanics are a little bit different. I find it quite enjoyable in that way, is that you get to see old cards in a new light. Since there's only one
Join
to
forces.
play.
Join forces cards are bonkers.
Oh, true.
So
Because
things
anything
like
cooperative, there's a lot
yeah.
of cards like braids, the commander braids, where it like allows you to like add in free stuff. Like you can break our format if you really wanted to.
Right.
Bob has a group hug deck. It's Tulane, but he plays he plays braids. He plays the join forces cards. Where there was one where it's a join forces where you go get basic lands into play,
Yep,
and like you can like go get
Collective
like 7
Yeah.
basic lands. Yeah, collective voyage. Like everybody just goes and gets 7 basic lands.
Yeah.
The problem with me
Yeah.
is that I don't run basic lands because I'm a tryhard. So I run all the dual lands and the tri lands and the fetch lands and the.
Yeah.
Well, I run a basic lands. Gross. But not
Yeah,
every deck I
would,
have.
Right.
I think that's one of the things that you'll end up probably seeing in One Piece is that a lot of the formats that come up are going to be all player and community driven. Do you think that it would be Bandai themselves that actually come up with a new design for a format, or do you think it's going to be players like with Commander, things like that in general? Do you see that it's going to be the company tailoring it, or the player base coming up with something new and exciting?
I think the company would be willing to. I don't. I can't speak to their exact philosophy on how they do things, but I think they'd be willing to if they felt like they were losing some amount of players because it became too stagnant. But the community is actually amazing. One of the best things that came out of the community, there is literally someone who has dedicated hours and hours to creating a program that allows you to pair and play One Piece against other people as a
So like
pseudo.
a spell table like situation.
It's actually a rules implemented program.
Oh wow. Okay.
It is like it's like an arena or a Legends of Runeterra or Hearthstone type. Now it's a bit more, not quite as polished as any of those, right?
Sure. Yeah, if
but-
some guy's just doing it in his basement or whatever. it
Yeah,
makes sense.
but it is super nice to just have like that as a part of the community. Somebody was just dedicated enough to make an entire app to play the game.
Super.
Do you know if One Piece is opposed to an online game? Like Flesh and Blood, their whole philosophy is that they want to be in the person in the flesh and blood. So
yeah.
flesh and blood. So they don't necessarily want to be able to play over the internet. They're not disallowing it. Like you can do it.
Yeah.
Do you know if One Piece is that same philosophy, or do they not care?
I bet that they would want to at some point get into that. like we said, they have online tournaments they run over webcams. So at some point, it seems like they would prefer to not have webcams and instead have actual card gameplay.
Yeah,
but I don't
like
think
the
that
flashy cards like Arena. Yeah.
right. I don't think that Bandai has for any of their games. They've created an online app, so I just think that's somewhere that they haven't really explored a whole lot.
The two-headed giant format you mentioned for One
Yeah.
Piece, was that created by the game or from from Bandai, or was that from
Yeah, it's
Community?
from Bandai.
Okay.
Buddy Battles are a Bandai game with like some fringe tournament type stuff. They don't really run a whole lot of tournaments, just a couple here and there. But it is a format that they created at some point there.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Three Swords Production, what's the next hottest thing you got coming up on the channel?
Next hottest thing. I tell you what, we've been terrible over the past couple of weeks. Anyone who's new here is going to come to our channel and see that we upload apparently nothing because there's been very little uploads over the past couple of weeks. I was out of town, or Steven was out of town at Gen Con. I was out of town last week. Steven's out of town this week. And it's just been really hit or miss over the summer, over the past couple of weeks. But we attempt to do daily uploads of gameplay for One Piece. We do some live streams that you can come and interact with us, ask us questions about why we build our deck specific ways or how we play specific things, and you can learn about the game. And we've also been just kind of delving into Lorcana a little bit. Maybe you'll see some Lorcana stuff. Maybe we'll test out how some videos do, and if that does well and you guys like Lorcana, then that's also a possibility.
Yeah, I'm looking at picking up a starter deck once it's reasonably
Right.
available.
Right.
That's I'm not rushing out, and I certainly was not waiting 6 to 8 hours in line in Indianapolis to get my hands on any
No.
of that specific product. But I would absolutely love to engage some of that back and forth. And I know Bob got himself a starter deck and was able to play at one of his local gaming stores. So we'd love to challenge you and see if we can collect enough lore to beat you up first.
Yeah, that'd be super cool too. Yeah, get some cross-channel interaction on some games or something. if you guys want to.
Collaborative
Yeah,
gameplay.
that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about Lorcana, I shouldn't say interesting. I tried watching gameplay of Lorcana, and I actually literally almost fell asleep to it, but that was not necessarily because of Lorcana being boring.
Hates Disney. It's
I was
fine.
actually trying
Like
to
I
go to
get
sleep.
it. It's like I get it, man.
The whole like you gotta wait for your ink to dry on that character. And then you're playing with Mickey Mouse and Cinderella and the Three Dwarves, and I don't know if I can get into it.
Don't buy that, Richie. Don't do that.
Wow, 200.
There's so many.
It'll
Yeah,
be
it retails for less
25%
than
cheaper than
one.
that. Yeah, it was
Yeah, it retails for
$143.50.
Yeah, 143.
So
So
like,
I would not do that.
Wait
2 weeks,
until
3 weeks.
September 1st, and it will be readily available at shop.disney.com. You can
Yeah,
just
like
buy
the actual
it
official
outright.
website.
Yeah.
You can actually
Yeah.
buy it directly through
So
them.
you
They're
don't
not.
even
It's
have
not going to
to,
sell out.
yeah, they're definitely supporting their local gaming stores, which was an interesting move with how Lorcana has given a 2-week time frame where the only way you can actually buy it in hand as at an LGS, and then you can get it online 2 weeks after that. Is One Piece treating local gaming stores in any way similar?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Are they really going online distribution model, or do they treat the in-person play with something extra?
I don't think that you can buy directly from them. I think you have to buy from some type of distributor or LGS to find the cards
Like
you
Star
want.
City Games, for instance?
Yeah, not on the website itself. But if you came to the store and you walked into our
Wait, can
our
you not
LGS,
buy? You can't buy One Piece from Star City Games.
you cannot.
Wow.
The only supported card games on Star City Games right now are Flesh and Blood and Magic.
Interesting. But you can get it on TCG Player because
You
that's where we were previewing.
Oh, you
something.
can't talk about that. That's the competitor website. I'm just kidding.
No problem at all.
He's not saying it's a good website. He's just saying that is a place where
It
you can
exists.
purchase.
I buy my One Piece cards from TCGplayer.com. So,
Is there a specific reason why Star City Games only does Magic and Flesh and Blood?
kind of
Or do
company?
you not have the ability to answer that?
I can't exactly say. I'm not defining what the company vision is, so I can't
Right,
exactly
right.
say what they want. But we strive to do really well at the things we do really well at. So I think when we decide to do something, we want to make sure we're doing it quite well. Is all.
It was funny enough. I actually watch a lot of the Commander games, the Star City games.
Yeah, the Commander Versus. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Commander
Yeah.
Versus. I watch almost every one of them.
Okay.
Good
I like
people
when
over
they
there.
do the 4 new decks that come out in a cycle all
Yeah.
at once. Very
Yeah.
thematic, and they're super quick about it. Really good personalities, and honestly, I so far like everything I've gotten through Star City games. So big ups on that side.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if you know those guys personally, but they seem like good dudes.
Yeah, everybody on Commander Versus, with the exception of Corey now, but Justin previously, all of those guys are just guys within the company that decided they wanted to start recording Commander.
Yeah, I miss
have a good
Justin.
platform.
Justin was cool. I don't know why he left, but I miss him.
Justin,
Corey,
yeah, Justin left the
Parnell?
company and is doing some of his own endeavors on different things, but Corey's
Gotcha.
been a good stand-in. So
Corey initially annoyed me. I actually did not like Corey very much, but then as I played, I'm like, you know what? Never mind. He's just a good dude having a good time. I get it.
yeah, Corey is actually from what I've experienced with him, which is not a whole lot. I don't do a whole lot of that video side, but from all the conversations I've had with him, he's exactly the same guy off camera as he's on camera, and he's just
Same
a great,
with me.
great person.
Same with
great
Pat.
person.
Same with Bob. Yeah. Yep. No fronts here, which is
Yeah.
cool, and that's what I like. I like personability, and I think all of them got it. So that
Right.
they're welcome on the channel anytime.
Right?
But yeah, I don't know how are you running on time? We're like over an hour and a half at almost.
Yeah,
at this
good
point.
90 minutes in.
Yeah.
You want to start wrapping it up here? Is there anything else more you want to talk about One Piece? Any
I
other
don't
games
think
you're
I have a
interested
lot
in?
about One Piece. We talked a lot about
Yeah,
the
I
cool
think we
aspects
nailed
there.
just about everything. It
Yeah,
seems like
so-
a fairly simple. I
It-
don't want to say simple, like simple is a bad thing. It
So-
seems like an easy game to get into and play.
It is, yes. The rules base level are easy. To really master the game, it takes a bit. When it comes to every card in your hand can be counterpowered to get out of attacks. You have to start
Yeah.
really doing the math and planning out your turns exactly how you might want them to go, and whether you
Seeing
need
how
to
things
kill
work out
characters, whether you
different,
versus
yeah.
need to go life, is always a balance as well. So
It's very flesh and blood like, where you have like this resource management, but it's different in that like where your card is a resource and you can use your card to use as a resource to block it, but you lose that card, or not lose that card, but then that card goes to the bottom of your deck, but then the cards that you play, then you get
Right.
lost. So you have to, it's like it seems so. Are there cards in One Piece? I do have another question actually.
Sure,
Now that I think
go
about
for
it. Are there cards that interact with the graveyard?
yes, there are cards that interact with the graveyard. Most of the ones at this point either like add a card from your graveyard back to your hand, or add cards from your graveyard back to the bottom of your deck. There's not a whole lot of like quote unquote reanimating anything at this point.
Right.
But yeah.
I'm sure they'll add that. That's
Yeah, at some point they'll get there.
Interesting. Awesome. Yeah, I think this has been phenomenal. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, it's been
Thank
great.
everybody in the audience for participating as well. There was a lot of great back and forth, Choop. I've got to say, this was phenomenal.
Awesome.
Really appreciating your time in answering all of our questions. And you had some great ones back and forth for us. I wish we could tell you more what our designs for the future were.
No,
but
it's fine. It's
heck,
all
man,
interesting.
We're just, yeah.
Oh, I have it. It's all up here.
He's got the plan.
Yeah.
He's the one.
I'm in the process of getting us a sick looking logo of like caricatures of the three of
Okay.
us,
Yep.
and it'll have like me in the center, and then like the two of them flanking me. I think with like holding some like cards or something like playing cards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'll have like maybe it'll have like me in the front, and then like two like guys like back like to shoulder with me or something. I don't know. I gotta find a way to express my brain thoughts into what the artist needs to be able to create what I'm trying to think of, and I can't. It's hard for me to do that because I
Sure.
don't have a inner mind or a mind's eye. I have zero mind's eye. I don't know if you're familiar with that is, but like mind's eye, you can like generate an image in your head. I
Yeah.
can't generate literally anything in my head.
Sure.
So
He's creative in
It's up.
other ways. So
sure,
that's
yeah, I'm
really
creative
good
in like
about,
I have like the word ideas of what I want it to look like, but then I have to tell it to somebody, and then trying to relay that information is, But yeah. I have to talk to Pat and Bob about something else that I thought about. Potentially some Dungeons and Dragons stuff coming to the channel, so we'll have to
Ooh.
look into that. But yeah, love you for coming on. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing your time with us. And It was a good time. Good time. Okay, so I have one final parting question for
Go
One
for it.
Piece.
Just one more.
If I were to get into the game right now, what would be the best way for me to enter into building my first deck? Is it a starter deck? Is it buying singles and like net decking? What if I were to get in there? What would be like a good budget way, less than $50 for like a decent competitive deck? Not competitive at like a tournament level,
Sure.
but competitive enough to like learn the game and be decent enough.
Yeah, you could buy one of the starter decks. You could buy probably the set. I'm gonna say the set 1 Luffy deck would probably be one of the better ones. But starter decks are going to have some amount of. They're like any other pre-constructed deck where they're gonna have some amount of good cards, some amount of
I've
bad
got some
cards.
chaff.
For $50, I don't think you could build a constructed tournament deck, but you could build probably pretty solid red decks, pretty solid green or yellow decks at this point.
Red decks are always the cheapest, aren't they? Every time.
Yeah, the aggressive decks, right? Nobody else is playing the cards that are just 1 mana, beater, but instead. But no, red is probably the strongest color in the game at this point. So if you find anything red you like, you'll probably be all right.
And yeah, I asked that question because I like to try new games, and I don't like investing a ton of money into games that I haven't really necessarily tried. As you can see on my shelf over here, that's Legion's Realms at War here. That was about $300 entry point, which I didn't necessarily need to do that. But I did because the developer of the game seems like a really cool dude, and I wanted to support the
Taylor
game.
was a really nice guy. He gave us both signed play mats.
Oh, that's cool.
And
Dude,
promo cards while we were there. It was
and
just,
when
come
I sent in an order and I asked if they were willing to come on the podcast, I said, hey, and if you would also like to include anything to show off onto the stream, let me know. And he sent me an extra box of cards, like just a full like booster box, as well as some like extra packs and some extra like blister things and the playmat and some other shit. Like just like overall, like I think they're a smaller game, but Legion's Realms at War, I have watched gameplay of it and I've looked at all the cards, and I think that it could be a really fun game because it's a game that's designed just to be Commander. Like it's not like Magic kind of has transformed into being Commander, but this game from the ground up has been built to be like you have a Commander, you have a Guardian that is like a that you not only do you have your normal Commander, but think of it kind of like Partner, where you have this Guardian, but they enable spells in your deck based on their AP alchemy points.
Okay.
So like a card will say like consume 10 blood debt or bloodborne 20. So bloodborne 20 means your character takes 20 damage, and then consume 10 would mean your guardian takes 10 of their AP away. And then you can do some crazy spell. Normally when they have like that much cost, it does like some crazy ability.
Right.
But it's very much similar to where in One Piece where there is no hit points of a monster, it's just attack.
Yep.
So that's interesting. But yeah, they're a smaller company. Lore Realm Studios, I believe, is the company name that makes
Future Lore Studios.
Future Lore Studios. That's the right. Yeah, Future Lore Studios. Seemed like cool dudes. I've been in their Discord. It seems like there's a decent amount of chatter. I haven't played the game yet though, so I'm still in the process of formulating if I love the game or not. But it seems cool.
I would have started playing myself, but dang, Baldur's Gate has got me all wrapped up. I'm almost 60 hours into it.
Nice.
It is. I got to play with one of my buddies, and it was phenomenal. We had Discord chat going the whole time, and we were able to just, jam some almost D&D together over the internet. And Matt, I would love if, we were able to broadcast something like that here on the channel, stream some live gameplay of me being a gnome, you being a half-orc barbarian, and just tossing me across the battlefield and just doing some real dumb shenanigans. And that's almost certainly what I'll do after I eat some food when the podcast is over.
Yeah, I'm in the process of waiting to play Baldur's Gate 3. I will play it for sure, probably within the next week or so. But I'm playing Black Desert Online right now. I play a mobile, like a semi-mobile game called Honkai Star Rail. I'm playing
Honky Star Rail.
Honky Star Whale, as some people call it, because it is kind of a pay-to-win game.
We're going back to trains again now.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to trains, this is a train that just is also a rocket ship and a not time traveling, in a warping ship. Anyways, and then the Path of Exile League that just launched just yesterday. I'm in the process of skipping my first Path of Exile League in probably 5 years because it just kind of looks like shit. But then, like, as I'm watching people play it, it's like that FOMO of like missing out on a league is kind of like digging in, and I'm like, my buddy doesn't want to play, and I always play with him, and he's like, I have zero interest, and I'm like, oh, that kind of kills it for me too. So, yeah. So Baldur's Gate 3 is probably next. We'll see.
Sure.
But yeah, are there any video games you play?
Yeah, more recently, well, probably after this, I'll probably go play some Vintage Cube on the Magic Online because that's back for the season right now. Big fan of the Vintage Cube. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire.
Ooh, good game.
And big fan of that still. And this past week, I've been playing a lot of the Pikmin 4 game that came out, which is something I grew up with and something I've always loved.
Yep.
Never.
I haven't played it myself, but yeah, I was really surprised
4?
to see how it came out of nowhere. Really, I didn't see it much up to the release as far as trailers or spoilers, any release stuff, and then Shazam. I like when games do that. You are a small astronaut that has crash landed, and you are able to control small swarms of creatures called Pikmin with different colors denoting the different abilities that they have. And you move around, and you don't.
You have to defeat some amount of creatures and fight your way through them, so it's a little bit that way. Yeah. But it's also, you're trying to like be as effective as you can to collect all the things on the map and bring them back to your home base, because the Pikmin can carry them back for you. So it's like a little bit of focusing on your different areas. Plus, you can play as 2 different leaders as once almost. So you can like create 2 different groups and try and be the most efficient between both of those to bring all that back. It's kind of interesting.
Almost RTS like.
Kind of, but there's not really a cap. It's kind of got that Animal Crossing feel of like, I'm not like pressured to get this done, but I kind of want to do this.
Interesting.
Well, hey guys, if you like content like that, make sure to tune in Saturdays at 7 p.m. because that's where we have these cardboard conversations. And thank you again, everybody, for joining this evening. It's been super.
Yeah, we'll end it here.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everyone. This was a lot of fun. Really like this.
Man, I wish that's what she said. Boom, got it right there at the end. Normally we just like dance on our way out.
I like to raise my eyebrows and stare into the camera all strange. really end the thing with a strange awkward moment, but